have several more months of rapid inflation. So I'm not saying that this is a 1 month phenomenon, but I think over the medium term, we'll see inflation decline back toward normal levels. But of course, we have to keep a careful eye on it. Measures of inflation expectations, I think, still look quite well contained. Over the medium term, those expectations are actually a driver of price setting behavior. And so it is important that we monitor it carefully, but I believe fundamentally, that this is something that will settle down.
About the virtues of a central bank digital currency being issued by the Fed. One of the things you said yesterday is that one of the stronger arguments in favor of a CBDC is that, quote, you wouldn't need stable coins, you wouldn't need cryptocurrencies if you had a digital U.S. currency. Of course, isn't the reverse also true? If you have stable coins, cryptocurrencies in use, then maybe there's no need for a central bank digital currency. I guess my 2 points. One is it's my view that the development of a central bank digital currency by the Fed would require congressional authorization. I'm wondering if you share that view. And secondly, it is still not clear to me what problem a central bank digital currency would solve. And I wonder if you think there are problems that only a central bank digital currency can solve.
So first, I'm legitimately undecided on whether the benefits outweigh the costs or vice versa or on a CBDC. Yesterday, I was answering a direct question about a particular argument. I said, in favor, that would be one of the stronger arguments. I would agree that the more direct route would be to appropriately regulate stable coins, which we don't do right now, and that's going to be a very important thing that we do. So in terms of congressional authorization, there are different views on that. I've said publicly, and I think this is right, that we would want very broad support in society and in Congress, and ideally that would take the form of authorizing legislation as opposed to a very careful reading of ambiguous law to support this. It's a very, very important initiative, and I do think we should ideally get authorization. In terms of what the problem is to solve, I think that is exactly the right question, and I think our obligation is to explore both the technology and the policy issues over the next couple of years. That's what we're going to do so that we're in a position to make an informed recommendation. But my mind is open on this, and I honestly don't have a preconceived answer to these questions.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. And we have Janet Yellen finally admits that inflation is going to keep rising. Now, remember when they first got into office, she said she's not worried. I did several videos on that. Now the tune is changing because we know we're getting closer to that time period that the Fed is going to start tapering. We know they printed 20% of all currency in existence in 1 year. It's close to an $8 trillion balance sheet. And we know the only fix is the digital currencies, which is going to cause hyperdeflation because everything comes imaginary. The current system that we're in right now is already fake, but blockchain allows Federal Reserve 2.0. And you guys know I did a video on that, so please watch it. Now we have Jerome Powell again sticking to the script, but we know they meet at the end of the month. If they do not give some type of signal that they're going to start tapering this month, in September, we know for a fact they're going to let us know something, but then we also know that a narrative is going to be built up, so therefore the sheep is looking one way, and the money is going in the back door, because we know in September, all this free money ends. So we know the New World Order works off what? Problem, reaction, and solution. Because when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. Y'all have a wonderful day.
To be increasingly concerned about this. The St. Louis Fed President James Bullard said just this week that he is, quote, a little bit concerned that we're feeding into an incipient housing bubble, end quote. Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan said that the Fed should begin tapering to begin offsetting, quote, some of these excesses and imbalances, end quote. The Boston Fed President Eric Rosengren raised alarms that the Fed's mortgage-backed security purchases may be contributing to the current boom in real estate prices citing the potential financial stability implications. I guess, I've been clear for a long time. I've been very skeptical about the ongoing mortgage-backed purchases. Are you at all concerned about the unintended consequences that are associated with $40 billion worth of mortgage-backed security purchases that continue month after month?
So housing prices are going up, as you mentioned, around 15%. This is a very high rate of increase. A number of factors are contributing. Monetary policy is certainly one of those factors. There are also other factors. People have very strong balance sheets, so they're able to make down payments. There are also supply factors that are constraining the supply, at least temporarily. So, my best thinking is that the difference between Treasury purchases and MBS purchases for this purpose is not a large one. Probably MBS purchases are somewhat more supportive of housing. That's not their intent, but that may be the effect. Really, the larger point is that monetary policy is supporting this, and that is that's a discussion we're going to be having as on an ongoing basis. We talked about some of these things at our last meeting. We'll talk about it at the next.
The Federal Reserve has two basic jobs: monetary policy, which everybody likes to talk about, and regulatory oversight, which is often way down in the weeds but keeps our economy safe from another banking meltdown. You've been chair for 4 years now and have gone through the process of what you describe as, quote, tailoring the regulations put in place after the 2008 financial crisis. Now, there were a lot of changes, but I want to talk about a couple in particular. To prevent taxpayer bailouts, banks are required to have living wills. This means that banks must be able to show every single year how they could be shut down without wrecking the entire economy. In 2019, you changed the rules so that the 13 banks with $250 billion to $700 billion in assets could submit full living wills only once every 6 years instead of every year. So that test is now weaker. Chair Powell, has the Fed done anything over the past 4 years to make living will requirements stronger?
To make living will requirement, we've done a lot of things to strengthen regulation and capital, but I think
on living wills, I
can explain what we.
So let's move to another regulation, the Volcker rule, the rule that works sort of like Glass-Steagall light to separate commercial banking from Wall Street risk-taking. In 2019, you exempted more short-term trading holdings from the rules, so banks could take on a little more risk. Now, that weakened the rule. Then in 2020, you eased up the rules to let banks invest more of their assets in high-risk private equity and hedge funds. So the Volcker rule got weaker again. So let me ask, Mr. Chairman, during the past 4 years, has the Fed done anything to make the Volcker rule stronger and limit risky trading for the largest banks?
I think by clarifying it, we made it more effective at what it's supposed to do, which is just what you said.
Well, I have to say, it's whether or not you did anything to make it stronger, not just whether or not you made it clearer. It's whether or not you made it stronger or harder for banks to engage in speculative trading. So I'm taking it that the answer here is no. I've highlighted 2 examples of weakening regulations, but there are a whole lot more. Reducing capital requirements, easing liquidity requirements, shrinking margin requirements, scaling back on supervision, weakening the stress test. It's a long list, and I realize that you think these are good changes, but I'm trying to look at this from a regulatory perspective. Is the chairman of the Federal Reserve making banking rules stronger or weaker? So tell me, Mr. Chairman, is there a big rule change that I missed? Can you name a change that strengthened the rules and made the actual rules tougher?
Well, let me say we did not.
But the researchers from the Minneapolis Fed found that the banks would have faced up to $300 billion in losses if not for fiscal stimulus from the government. In other words, the current Fed rules were not strong enough for the banks to withstand the pandemic without, once again, calling on American taxpayers to back them up. And that's the heart of my concern. I understand that the next crisis may feel far away, But like the pandemic, it may come at us fast and from an unexpected direction. It is the job of the Federal Reserve, and specifically the job of the chair of the Federal Reserve, to use the regulatory tools that Congress has created in order to make sure that banks remain strong and that taxpayers will never be called on.
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.